So thank you guys all again for coming. Those of you who weren't here in the beginning, my name is Marissa Sosky. I am the current president of the Student Alliance for Integrative Medicine for the next couple hours. I don't believe she's in here at the moment, but I want to announce that we are passing over leadership, which is traditionally happens at Integrative Medicine Day, to our new president of our organization. Her name is Christine McClure. She's not in here at the moment. She's the blonde one standing at the registration desk. So you can go up and give her a big congratulations, high five, or a hug, of condolences, whatever is appropriate. No, it's a great organization, and I feel truly honored to be able to pass on the leadership to her. So thank you all for being here and seeing this amazing transition happen. I'm really excited for her. I also want to thank the OCIM board members. The OCIM is the Oregon Collaborative for Integrative Medicine. They are a parent organization. Their board members are Samantha Simmons, Dr. Joe Brimhall, Dr. Joe Hardman, Dr. David Schleich, Beth Howlett, and Dr. Irina Gelman. A couple of them are here today, and if you run into them and see them, thank them for allowing us to exist as the Student Alliance for Integrative Medicine and for all the amazing work they do in the world of integrative medicine. I want to thank all of the schools that are participants of OCIM and SAME as they help sponsor this event today. That's the National University of Natural Medicine, Oregon Health and Science University, Oriental College for Oriental Medicine, Oregon College of Oriental Medicine, Pacific University, and the University of Western States. And also we had one other company sponsorship, which is Priority One. They're a supplement company. You can check out their table. They have some samples out. So thank you all very much to the schools for supporting this event. I have two really awesome awards to give today. Both of them are new. So the first one I want to give is the SAME Ally Award. We started to do this year because we wanted to thank one individual, either from the community or from participating organizations that had supported us throughout the years, especially within the last year, to really make our organization as successful as possible. This year, I'm really excited for this award. The winner has been a huge advocate for SAME over the years and has always been there for guidance, not just for the organization, but for me personally. And so I'm really, really blessed and feel really honored to give this award. He's retiring from his current endeavors to move on to greater things. And we wanted to thank him before he left this community, this immediate community, this year. So without further ado, it brings me great pleasure to award the SAME Ally Award to Dr. David Schleich. Yes.
When you get closer to 80 than you are to 60, you get to say stuff you wouldn't say when you're 40. So I want to tell you three things. When I began in this field many years ago at the University of Toronto, one of my mentors in the Faculty of Medicine said, "Watch, David, for the integrating of philosophies." That's what he said. Now, integrative medicine isn't exactly that, but he was right. He also said the generations of providers in the future will have challenges that are even greater than those that were present then. But I can tell you from watching the students, not only here, but in previous years in SAIM, that George Bernard Shaw was wrong. He did say, and those of you who are over 40 will know exactly what I'm about to say. Wait a minute, you might be over 20 and know what I'm about to say. George Bernard Shaw once said, I'm almost done, Marisa knows I talk a lot. He said, "Youth is wasted on the young." That is not the case with you people. What is before you in your careers is remarkable. It's extremely complex. But your spirit, energy, discipline, and forbearance with different philosophical and epistemological approaches to health will prevail. And I wish you Godspeed in that. The other thing I want to tell you is where I'm going. My bride of many years, Dr. Susanna Serenko, is the closest thing you'll find to a nature cure physician on the planet. And I did promise her that I would give the next choice of location to her, since she's been so supportive of me over the years. And she said, absolutely. I thought we would go to Pensacola. How about that? New Mexico, San Diego, the least common denominator among which is no snow, or very little snow. Where are we going? We're going to the sub-bloody Arctic. We're going to central northern Saskatchewan, where there is a nature cure clinic that will emerge that will be a definitive place. You are all welcome there to see how it's done. Just below the just below the forest at the top end of the prairies. Now, why is that relevant? Because integration is really about nature. It's about spirit. It's about philosophy. It's about mind. It's about body, and it's about more than that. It's also about politics. So I hand this over to you guys. Make this happen. The patient's at the center. Thank you so much for this extraordinary award. It's the first time anybody has said, oh, you're retiring, we better do something about that. And I'm not surprised it's students who have done that. Doctor, thank you, Marissa.
Lastly, real quick, before we get to our keynote, another new thing that we did this year was have a student research competition. We had 3 submissions, which was lower than we wanted, but it was a great start, and I want to announce this. So next year, hopefully, keep a lookout to see a call for submissions for student research. It was a scholarship opportunity, so the winner from each category got $500. People only submitted to one category, so we'll be rewarding one scholarship today. So this was judged on a panel of a standardized questionnaire about research posters, and the lucky winner is Alicia Bruton. So if you can give her a big round of applause. Yeah, you can come up. And I forgot to write down the title of her research, so I'm hoping she'll just come up and say it real quick. And then the research posters will be up in the atrium during the social, so you can go and check it out there. Also, I announced, Christine, that I think you weren't in the room yet, that you were going to be taking over leadership. So if you want to just step in the light for a second, we can give Christine a huge round of applause for being the next SANE president.
Thank you.
Do you want to announce your research?
Sure. So my research was a systematic review and meta-analysis on the use of something called phosphatidylserine, it's a mouthful, to treat ADHD in children. So thank you. Yeah. Mm-hmm. Can I give you a hug too?
Yeah. Mm-hmm. All right. Sorry for the delays. We're going to get to the juice now. So we have Dr. James Mason here to bless us with his knowledge regarding, so the topic that we had chosen originally was responding to individual and systemic racism in clinical practice. We really wanted the intention of this to be proactive and not just saying, oh, we know there are racial disparities in healthcare, but more, what can we do about this? And I think that this talk will speak incredibly to this, and I hope you guys all have some amazing takeaways at the end of it. Thank you guys all so much for coming, and pass it off.
Thank you. Thank you, Marissa. Good evening, everyone. Didn't mean to wake you. You know, something I would say, first, I want to honor to be here. Need to thank too many people, including Leslie Garcia, who's at your School of Medicine here at OHSU, who I think invited me on, was it Wednesday or Thursday, to fill in. And she briefed me on what I was talking about, and then I talked to Marissa, I think, the day after, and she told me something totally different. So this should go really, really well. So I really want to thank Leslie. I also want to thank Marissa for being such a great host and welcoming me and getting me situated here. And also want to thank you. Like the good doctor suggested, a bright future ahead of you, challenging future ahead of you. And here's the interesting thing around dealing with this emerging subject of diversity, however you slice it, is typically the people that come to these things are not the people that need to be at these things. So there's a funny responsibility upon all of you as ambassadors of the message. I'm talking largely about bias today, and one of the things, a little bit I'll share. For the past 10 or 12 years, I've been the Chief Diversity Officer at Providence in Oregon region. And so I had most of all the state, and I spilled over into Washington and then into California. And prior to that, I ran the State Office of Multicultural Health for the state of Oregon, and before that, most of my life as an academic, including being here at OHSU with Leslie for a number of years. Also a stint at Georgetown where we developed and founded a National Institute of Cultural Competence. So that's kind of who I am a little bit. My bio was really, really long, and my mom was really impressed with it, so I don't want to bore you with that. One of the interesting things around bias, there's a lot of ways to look at it, and one of the digs on bias training is that it's not enough just to tell people that they have biases, like big whoop. It's what you begin to do with it. And so one of the cool things we did at Providence that I was really, really proud of was not the only identifying bias workshops that we developed, but we also did something around overcoming bias, how to begin to address it, what do you begin to do? Because the biases are so ubiquitous and so contextual and so etched on our hard drive, and they surface at very inopportune moments. The last module that we developed while I was there was interrupting bias. We were finding that there was a lot of interesting talk that would occur between professionals, between patients and professionals, between professionals and patients, also between our patients. And we started developing orientation materials on how to interrupt bias so that it wasn't just my office that was concerned with this. It was a lot of our professionals that were also concerned. The thing that I would have you think about is wherever you are in your journey around bias, around diversity, around difference, understand it's a developmental process. Be better than you were. Often, I've been a consultant working with health systems and public health bureaucracies, local, state, and national for the last, since about '88, I guess. And something I've learned that I think is so important is often I would go on the road and I would talk to either medical groups or clinicians or administrators, and one of the things they would often tell me was, James, thanks for coming, we suck at this. And I'm like, well, okay, cool. The goal is to suck less tomorrow. We all suck at this, right? And here's the bad thing about this. As with your own discipline, you'll never get there. Just as you learn a little bit about diversity, you find the nuances change. The context changes. So, for example, I think when I came to Portland years and years and years ago from Southern California, I think there were 35,000 African Americans in the state. I was like, damn, what's up with that, right? They could put them all in Dodger Stadium a couple times. And then if we look at when I got here, there was a hood in North and Northeast Portland. And the fact is, the east side of the river, the river here in Portland, was the more diverse, racially, ethnically, culturally, socially. The west side was much more homogenous. You wanted to see white people, you went to Beaverton, right? If you look at Beaverton now, the mayor, Denny would tell you, Mayor Doyle would tell you that Beaverton is the most diverse city in Oregon, the most diverse school district. If we look at the east side of the river, which used to be the most racially diverse, it's most rapidly gentrifying. So wherever you are in your piece of the world, understand that context changes. It's very nuanced. Learning about diversity at one point in time is no guarantee that you stay abreast of the knowledge. So we just encourage you to be on your journey. When we think about bias, there are many targets. And like I said, I've worked probably in most of the states, and I remember in my early days, I was doing some work in, I call them one of the interesting states. It was either Montana or the Dakotas or Wyoming. But it's one of those places when I landed and I'm in the airport, I know I'm the only one around, right? I mean, it's just like, whoa, I'm the only one around. And I remember I was riding around with a practitioner, a white guy, and we were driving through town, I guess, and he pointed at a kid and he said, you can just look at him and tell he's from the wrong side of the tracks. And I looked at the kid and I looked at the doctor. I looked at the kid and I looked at the doctor. I looked at the kid and I looked at the doctor. I said, my God, he looks just like you, right? And the doctor was absolutely offended. He says, do you see his boots? Do you see his jeans? Do you see his bandana? And I was like, no. And so the interesting thing was the biases that this very well-intentioned, very good doctor had toward the town, out-of-town people was so interesting to me and so new to me because I hadn't really worked in the boonies a whole lot in my early days. But I was just surprised that even when I was working in a fairly homogenous white community, how biases surfaced. So again, when we think of where we are, understand that they're going to be wherever you go. And the other thing that really puts us behind the eight ball is we really haven't learned a whole lot about the diverse groups we're going to encounter. We all know what's wrong with women. We all know what's wrong with people with disabilities. We all know what's wrong with people of color. We all know what's wrong with the poor. We all know what's wrong with people with mental illness. What we tend not to know are their resiliencies, are their assets. And going back to the doctor's challenge, I think a big challenge for you is learning people in terms of their strengths, their assets. How do we build on those? Their faith, perhaps, or their belief in their family, or their belief in nature. Things of that. How do we build on that? And understand that what we've learned has basically been the deficit model. And probably it hasn't had a long life, but I would probably say that strengths-based research around diverse populations is more than likely about 20 years old. This is a reflection, and we will have to repent in this generation, not merely for the hateful words and actions of bad people, but for the appalling silence of the good people. So the bad thing, the hard thing about being good, it's more than just the absence of being bad. Give you an example. I think among the more recent studies around pay equity, I think women make around 77% of what men make. If you control for education, training, experience, kind of a problem there. So if I may, on behalf of the men, to the women, we are sorry, which I'm sure makes all of you feel better, right? Yes? How about this? Maybe not. We are very sorry. Is that better? The interesting thing about being a male is that if I don't fight on behalf of pay equity for women, I'm kind of complicit. So part of the way that I use my male privilege is to fight on behalf of my sister, my mother, the women in my life, the women that I know. Same way with my heteroness. I try to fight for my LGBTQ brothers and sisters. My able-bodiedness at this point in time, I try to fight for people with disabilities. So on one hand, I could feel sorry or ashamed of how situations are, but a big responsibility for all of us in terms of being allies is how do we have the backs of others less fortunate. Something I would also suggest to you is a very useful tool of dealing with difference, if not bias, is just the idea of ground rules. Most of my life was spent as an academic. And I remember being in rooms about this size with 100 students, and invariably somebody says something about those people, except those people were in the room, and it wasn't a very smooth utterance. And you want to reach out and save the poor person. You say, nope, they're on their own. And during the first break, the person that was offended comes over here and gives this person a really, really, really bad time. And that person learns never to speak again in class. And we found that wasn't all that conducive to education. And something that we did in my classroom, one of the ground rules was assume positive intent. If someone says something goofy, given the fact that we're all well-intended, we're all do-gooders, we're all helping professionals, assume that they meant well. And you might, as opposed to embarrassing them in front of their peers, share with them in a private moment a better way to talk about this issue, this population, this concern. Some of us are older, been using our words a long time, and might need to be corrected a second time with something we agreed. Some of us are even old, right? And we agreed that we might need to correct someone for the same offense a third time. But we kind of conclude that no one's that dang old, right? They make the same mistake the fourth time after being corrected, then we got to drag them to the parking lot and we got to stone them. They're going to jeopardize the human gene pool, get us all killed. We got to get them off the planet as quickly as possible. But for the most part, in dealing with difference and talking about difference, you want to assume that people mean well when they say goofy things. And that's going to be the spirit of how we talk today. The other thing I would have you think about is if you're going to raise the issue of a critical conversation, particularly around difference, bias, things of that nature, is don't be afraid to make it a confidential conversation. Make sure that you're listening. Make sure that you're sharing the airtime. Make sure that you're withholding judgment, that you question. And ultimately, I would suggest just around diversity, period. Try to have fun during the 21st century. Take advantage of transportation technology, communication technology, information technology. The world is a smaller place. Learn how people name babies, how they view illness, how they view health, what they look for in credible providers, what is going to lead to a healthy therapeutic relationship or rapport. And understand that the work that we do is often very intrusive. When I work with our docs at Providence, I try to give them tools for expediting rapport or relationship building, which is critical. And I said, one of the things that gets in the way, think about it, often in our first encounters, we'll ask people about their health history, their mental health history, drug and alcohol history, sexual history. We need to know. We ask with impunity. Something I want you to try, not today. Next time you're at a mall, I want you to walk up to a stranger and ask those questions. If that person starts to answer, get away. That's a weirdo. Yet we often fail to apprise our customers, the people that we work with, that we weren't raised by wolves, but these questions are endemic to the work that we do. So I urge you to try to develop your own list of ground rules of how you might approach someone for a difficult conversation. It's going to be critical. Something I would also have you, reformatted. Think about a time when you saw an individual disrespected because of their identity and how you felt. How the victim react. Part of the impetus for this work that we were able to identify and modify was a lot of our caregivers, when they heard people being offended, didn't know what to do. They were embarrassed. They felt bad for someone. It's also based on the idea of thinking about a time when you were disrespected because of your identity, whether it be your age, your race, your gender, your sexuality, your generation. How did you feel? How did you react? And these are things that ground us on an ongoing basis. So the reflection questions that I would have you wonder about on an ongoing basis. How do other people feel when slighted? How do other people feel when slighted and you're in the room and you don't say anything? How do you feel when you don't say anything? Remember years and years ago, I was in a I think it was a Walmart. I think it was called a Walmart. And I was doing stuff for, I had on the FBI suit that even had the tie on. And I was in there and I was waiting, I was in line, and the lady said, "Sir, you're next." And I said, "No, they're next." And it was what I presumed to have been an indigenous couple from Mexico, more working class, no tie, no jacket. And she says, "No, sir, you're next." I said, "No, they were here before me." She says, "Well, they don't mind waiting." And I'm like, "Oh." I said, "But they were here before me." She said, "Oh, it's okay, they can wait." And I think I only got treated that way because I had on a jacket and a tie and I looked like the FBI and they didn't. And it brought back kind of trauma in me when I got dissed that way and no one spoke up. And I just remembered saying to her, I said, "You know what? I forgot I don't really want anything. I don't know how I ended up in here." And I walked out. But I figured I shouldn't waste a good suit and a good tie. I went back in and I found the manager. And I said, "Hey, you know what? I don't think the young lady meant to be disrespectful, but it really brought PTSD in me. And I thought she really slighted this couple that was here before me." So again, part of what I'm asking you to do is use your privileges as a college-educated person, American-born, English speaker, forward-thinking, having the backs of others. And how might we begin to do that, and why might we begin to do that? One of the reasons we begin to do that is there's a problem with silent collusion. When we don't speak up, not only do they hate the person that offended them, but they hate you. They hate what you represent. And just like we can generalize, they can generalize. They'll not only hate that healthcare provider, but they may hate healthcare providers. And as a result, they may do things such as delay care. As a result, they may do such things as not comply with treatment. I was seeing I hurt my knee about 10 or 15 years ago. And I played ball when I went to school, and I coached part of my life, and I knew a lot about knees. And so I went and saw a doctor, and I was paying out of my pocket, and she was explaining something, and she thought it was a bursa, and I said, no, I don't think it's a bursa because there's no swelling and serious pain, and we kind of talked for a minute, and then she told me to shut up, right? And she told me she was a great orthopedist. And I kind of kept talking, and she told me to shut up again. I'm like, wow. And I thought for a second and said, a great orthopedist? You're a great orthopedist, you should be working on Baryshnikov or Shaquille, but you're working on me. I'm probably a better patient than you are an orthopedist. And you tell me shut up twice. I'm a big old black guy. I watch TV. I know what I'm capable of. The interesting thing about that was she gave me her findings, and I remember walking out, leaving it on the nurse's station. I was so glad that I was right in the long run. But the idea was, I don't really think she meant to say shut up. I think she was actually saying, like your previous speaker, I think it was Dr. Little, who said the importance of time that we often don't have. And I think what she really meant to say to me was, I don't really have the time to talk to you, but I really will next time. So the idea of her being kind of insulting wasn't that big of a deal, but the fact that there was a nurse in the room when she told me to shut up a couple of times kind of offended me a little bit. And I remember looking to the nurse like, save me, and she didn't. And then I remember leaving saying, I don't like the doctor and I don't like the nurse, and I think I'm a better patient than she was, an orthopedist. She's probably a tremendous person, though, on top of all that. Who can do this stuff? Who needs to speak up? We all do. We all do. It's the onus. And I imagine many of you, when you haven't spoken up in your past, you walk away feeling kind of crunchy. That's not a good thing to feel. The good doctor earlier alluded to the idea of ally behavior. We want to become allies to people. We want them to see us as having their backs and making sure that we have their backs in terms of the systems that they encounter. What if it's too risky? And it is sometimes. We'll talk a little bit about context. I won't have time to go into all of these, but I'll share a couple of with you, and I'll leave the book with Marissa as a gift because she gave me a gift. But there are 12 techniques for taking action without shaming or guilting people when they say goofy stuff. As I said, we start with the idea of assuming good intent, but we have the opportunity to explain the impact. And this might happen between colleagues, between us and a patient. We might broker this between patients. One of the things that I've been getting questioned about a lot, not only in the Northwest, but around the country, what happens when a patient doesn't want a certain kind of provider? Doesn't want someone because of their last name, or the color of their skin, or their sexual orientation, or their generational status. There's an interesting book by Damon Tweedy at Duke Psychiatry. I think it's entitled Black Man in a White Coat. And he talks about his experiences becoming a doctor and how he was pulled off of cases because he was black and how that made him feel. And a big part of what we're all experiencing in healthcare is, as the challenge that the good doctor alluded to earlier, one of the challenges for the 21st century is the diversification of the people we're going to serve. And they're diversifying at a much faster rate than our workforce. Here's the funny thing about a diverse workforce. A diverse workforce isn't inherently a culturally competent workforce. It isn't organic. So as a black person, I didn't learn to work with black people just because I woke up one day and said, whoa, I got this. As women, you won't be able to organically learn to work with women. And fact is, some of the most phenomenal people, practitioners I've seen working cross-culturally, were working cross-culturally. So again, we assume good intent with the idea that we can all do this more effectively, and we might need to explain impact. One of the strategies that Leslie Aguilar talks about in her book, Ouch, is saying ouch. When we see someone offended or slighted, we say ouch out loud. And the offender heard that and hopefully triggers them to ask, why did we say ouch? And during a quiet moment when the other party's not around and we're not going to unduly embarrass, we get to say to them maybe how they may have said something differently. That they probably shouldn't have said colored people. They might have said people of color, I had a buddy that would often refer to sexual orientation as alternative lifestyle. And you know, you hear something enough, and then you say, no, I don't want to hear that again. And then I ousted him, and he asked me why. And I said, I don't think alternative lifestyle stuff is really kind of dated and not so cool and kind of value-laden, but that's just what I think. And I said, I think people much more refer either you identifying them specifically or being respectful of them as people who are LGBTQ. And just getting the 21st century with language. And the challenging thing about language is it's so dynamic and so easy to get it wrong. One of the cool things that health systems are doing now is they're starting to ask people what they are in terms of their race, ethnicity, and language. Before that, as recent as 8 years ago, 10 years ago, we would look at people and guess what they were. That's very challenging in the Great Northwest. We lose our sun, S-U-N, right? From about September to what? September, right? We also racially intermarry in the Great Northwest 3 to 4 times the national average, and that makes it hard. And if you've ever been around newborns are also challenging. My first child, I hate to keep digressing, but I'm having fun. My first child, I remember he was born, and I took all the classes and everything, and then I think when the baby's born and you're there and they ask you if you want to cut the umbilical cord, and they say, no, I really don't, and they make you do it. I did that, and they just, do you want to hold them? And I'm like, no, I really don't, because I was used to kind of TV babies, and this was like, whoa, I'm not holding that, right? And they made me hold them, and I'm like, ew, and then I remember labor being so tough, I barely made it through. And so I had to go home, and I went home, and I came back, and I went to look for my child in the baby window, and I remember saying my baby is missing, because I was this color then, and my baby's mom was this color. She still is this color, as a matter of fact, but she was this color then, and we kind of expected a baby kind of this color. And it's just white babies. And I said, and this is something you should never say, I said, my baby is missing. The good thing, though, the security came, and they ran up there, and they found a baby, and they gave him to me, and said, this one's yours. I'm like, whoa, he's cute and everything, but I'm looking for one of these, right? And they said, no, really, this is your baby, this is your baby. Look at the name tag. Name tag's 25 cents. This could be anybody's kid. But the cool thing is security saw me walk away with a little white baby, and so I immediately went to find the mom, and I woke her up. I said, oh, by the way, have you seen this? Have you seen this? We kept him. He darkened up. It's all good. My point is that you can't look at people and guess what they are. So one of the cool things that we're doing now is we're asking about race and ethnicity, and for a lot of us that was challenging. But that allows us to provide better care. In addition to saying ouch, we can also rephrase. If someone says something that isn't so smooth, we can correct them very subtly with a rephrasing. A person who's used people first language, for example. We can ask a question and wonder if they really meant what they said. Again, trying to be graceful and gracious. We can repeat in question. Did you really mean to say this when you said that? We can also interrupt and redirect. We can appeal to people's empathy. How do you think so-and-so would feel if they knew you called her that or talked about her that way? That might even work. And we can even name it. That's kind of the nuclear option. We can call it sexism, a homophobia, a racism, or ableism. We can name it. We can also see contradictions. If someone wants to, for example, malign a millennial, saying that they don't have strong work ethics, we can talk about someone in the mailroom who might. We can make it individual that way. We can broaden to universal behavior. And we can use the I voice. So something I would have you think about is there are several approaches to interrupting bias, and it's all of our responsibilities. Not to do it can have severe consequences. One of the things that's happening with health systems, and I know we're kind of in a chaotic period as health systems, but is the idea of value-based services, or preventative care. And one of the scary things that if people are challenged or intimidated by coming to healthcare environments because people don't speak their language, or because they don't dress the part, or because they look like cigarette smoke, or because they eat too much sugar and we've judged them, they will feel that. And they will delay care. And what was a small lump can be a big lump. What was a runny nose can be pneumonia. It can have severe, severe consequences. When I started off by saying hello. Something I would also have you think about, and it's a very subtle aspect of bias, make sure that you do try to greet. And you try to greet across the board. I'll give you a bias that I found in myself, and I was really kind of surprised because I'm really, really a cool guy. But I had someone come to my office to sign some papers so I could buy a house. He's my neighbor. He's a really cool guy, kind of, I thought. And I was glad that he came to my office. And it was interesting. I was so excited when he came and I signed and walked him out of the building. And I walked back to my office, and my office smelled like cigarette smoke. And when I didn't realize in my excitement that he was a smoker, and how offended I was that he came to my office smelling like that. And if I was a practitioner, would I treat him any different? Would I have the love? I remember another kid came to my office years and years and years ago, and again, I'm a really, really cool guy, and the kid was 4 years old, 80 pounds, and he came in drinking a 2-liter thing of Orange Crush. And they were like, "Oh, you little fat bastard," right? And your mama sucks too, right? And he was asking everybody for candy. And again, coming to grips with some of the biases that I had around body type, which surprised me, around people's income and the choices they make around food. And not that this mother didn't love her son, certainly more than I did. And strangely enough, the kid ended up getting a 4-year degree, playing professional football, taking very, very good care of his mother, and I think he was magna cum laude at school. How dare me? So again, when we begin to think of the implications of bias, I'm asking you, like the good doctor, challenging you to become assets for diversity. And I think some of the considerations I would have you think about is seek opportune moments to change, to influence. Respect the benefit of privacy. You're not trying to win. You're trying to model. So no gotcha moments. We don't want to do that. We don't want to drive people underground or shame them. Again, understand that what most of us have learned about diversity has been what's wrong with people as opposed to what's right with people. The new models of health research and cultural research are much more strength-based. Here's the other thing that may not happen for you. By being a good person, you might not get the love you think you deserve immediately. You might not get the kudos you deserve immediately. And something else that Leslie Aguilar talks about is redefine political correctness, PC, to be professional competence, or being personally conscious. Find time to practice. And I would say Portland is a great place for learning about diversity. And I would say the way that you expedite your learning is attending such things as Cinco de Mayos, Pride events, Veterans Day events, MLK events, Cinco de Mayos, TETs, things of that nature. Find out who makes you uncomfortable, who spooks you, and challenge yourself to get better. And something else I'm going to suggest that you might do to help overcome bias we found to be critical is look for commonalities. If you go to a TET, if you go to Cinco de Mayo, find someone who likes you, who might like the elephant ears, or might like the salsa, things of that nature. Find what you have in common. You're going to find that to be a very, very powerful tool. Other thing I would suggest to you that's going to be critical, identify allies and role models. Find people that will bring you the psychic and virtual hugs and Band-Aids and Bactine when you've done something goofy. And we all will. We will all say the wrong thing. And something we found to be really, really critical from a clinical standpoint is learn to apologize. Even learn to apologize up front. Warn someone that you might say something awkward, and it's more your dumbness than your meanness. And there's a smoother way to say that. And empower them to correct you. And move on to your next mistake. You don't get to make that mistake again. Make sure that we try to learn. Understand that it's in your best interest. One of the things that's happening in the world of work is a lot of the qualifications that are becoming to find their way on job descriptions are talking about a willingness, desire, or experience to work cross-culturally. That's going to be a big part of your future. As I said, when I came to Portland years and years and years ago, it was a very, very homogenous community. We've seen people come from various parts of the world, various parts of Africa, various parts of Asia, various parts of the Middle East. And all it takes is one more political upheaval, environmental cataclysm, economic issue, and we have a whole new group coming our way. And we see this all across the U.S. What I want to close with are 10 things we might be able to do to mitigate against bias and promote justice. Don't laugh at sexist, racist, and other stereotypical jokes or assumptions. We can't give them the life of day. And some of them might feel absolutely hilarious, but no, we have to learn to stop them. And that's a good ouch moment. Make an effort to get to know people different from you. And as I said, different from you in some ways, and look for the similarities. Do you guys like puppies? Do you like chocolate cake? Do you like sunsets? Do you like kids? Do you like your own kids? Stuff like that, right? Learn about people in terms of their culture. And not so much the food and the songs, which is a real cool way to experience diversity, but also some of the nuances of how they view illness and health, ideology, treatment, time, family. What's healthy food? What's a good diet? Things of that nature. I think I may have timed out or something. You're assuming a lot. All righty, thank you. Who did that? Oh, thank you very much, my savior. Think before you speak, particularly if you have someone you can practice on, you can wonder with. And a big challenge I would also make to you while you're in school, try to make sure that your contacts, what might have been called a Rolodex 20 years ago, is ready for the 21st century. Where do you go when you don't know? And make sure you have more than one to ask. I remember years and years and years ago when I was at a research institute, I was the only African American who worked there. And I got there one Monday morning, and all my friends were waiting in the lobby. And I should have taken that as a sign. I said, oh my God, James, we're so glad you're here. You're the only one we can ask. And it was during the OJ1 era, O.J. Simpson, and they asked me an O.J. Simpson question. Why did he blah, blah, blah? I had no idea. But I was black then, and I felt compelled to answer, right? So I made something up. And you ever start making stuff up, and it just gets kind of good to you, and whoa, that's just, and they were like, wow, that is so deep. I said, you don't even know. And then I thought, thinking, help me now, thinking about white people. Why did Jeffrey Dahmer eat those folks, right? And it was amazing because all my white friends turned red at the same time. And I was like, damn, I didn't know you guys could do that. I've been waiting for that moment again. It hasn't happened. But then I remember, and they said, why would you even ask us that? I said, why would you ask me about OJ? I'm not allowed to speak for the 5 black people in my family, let alone 35 million in the U.S. So again, when I talk about finding allies and things like that, and building a Rolodex and building contacts, make sure you have more than one. And make sure it isn't me, because I might just make it up on you. Ready? I read the last ones to you. Don't make assumptions. Explore the unfamiliar. Work on projects with people different from yourself. Volunteer in the community. Be a proactive parent if you have children or plan to have children. Make sure that they have different and perhaps less biases than we do. And ultimately, what I would suggest to you is wherever you are today, be better tomorrow. However you suck today, suck less tomorrow. The world is diversifying at a rapid rate, and something I would absolutely close with. See diversity when you see people, not when you see race or gender or sexuality, when you see people. I understand that the food groups we put people into, white, black, Latino, Asian, Native, are just too broad. What does white mean in the 21st century without some qualifiers? As the doctor said, the challenges that you face are going to be vast. I think the opportunities that you have are equally vast. I want to thank you all for being a very attentive and good group so late in the afternoon. I promised Marissa I wouldn't keep you past 6. I wish you all luck on your journeys. Thank you very, very much. Take care, everyone.